Uncomfortable conversations. The human skill we all need to practice. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Have you ever been frustrated by something someone did or said but never told them? Have you ever replayed a conversation in your head for days thinking about what you should have said? Have you ever avoided bringing up an issue because you didn't want to create tension, only to realize later that the tension was already there? I think most of us have. I certainly have. Whether it's with a colleague, a friend, a family member, or a partner, we've all experienced situations where something bothered us, disappointed us, or hurt us. But instead of addressing it, we stayed silent. We tell ourselves, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it will resolve itself. This is probably not the right time. And sometimes days become weeks. Weeks become months. And what started as a small, little issue grows into something much bigger. The reality is that most problems don't disappear simply because we avoid talking about them. And in fact, avoidance often has the opposite effect. Small frustrations become resentment. Misunderstandings become assumptions. Distance replaces trust. And before we know it, we're carrying emotions that could have been resolved with one honest conversation. If this video's message resonates in you, please give it a thumbs up. Today, I want to talk about something that I believe is one of the most important human skills we can develop: the ability to have uncomfortable conversations. Because uncomfortable conversations are not something we should avoid. They are something we should learn to navigate. After all, tensions are part of life. We're humans. We have different expectations, different personalities, different ways of communicating, different priorities. Whether in our personal lives or in our professional environments, disagreements and misunderstandings are inevitable. The goal isn't to eliminate them. The goal is to learn how to address them in a way that strengthens relationships instead of damaging them. Because when handled correctly, difficult conversations can become opportunities. Opportunities for clarity, opportunities for growth, opportunities for stronger trust and deeper understanding. Recently, I was listening to someone I really like very much, Simon Sinek. And he was addressing difficult conversations and leadership, and something immediately resonated with me. I realized that the framework he was describing was very close to an approach I'd personally been using for years. An approach that has helped me navigate many uncomfortable situations, both professionally and personally. His method is simple. Let's call it FBE or FBS if you prefer. It stands for feelings, behavior, egregious example or situation. What I particularly like about this method is that it keeps the conversation personal, constructive, and focused on understanding rather than blaming. Let me explain. The first step is feelings. Before talking about what someone did, start with how you feel. No accusations, no judgments, no assumptions, just feelings. For example, I feel disappointed. I feel frustrated. I feel excluded. I feel concerned. This may sound simple, but it completely changes the tone of the conversation. Because you're not attacking the other person. You're sharing your experience. You're being vulnerable enough to explain how the situation affects you. And that's something people are often much more willing to hear. The second step is behavior. This is where you explain what behavior is causing those feelings. And this is critical. Be specific. Avoid words like always or never, because the moment we say, you always ignore me, you never listen, the conversation often becomes an argument. Instead, focus on observable behavior. For example, when messages remain unanswered for several days, or when decisions are made without consulting me or the team, specific behaviors can be discussed. General accusations usually trigger defensiveness. And the third step is the situation or egregious example. This means providing one very specific example, a real moment, a concrete event, something has actually happened. For example, last Thursday during our meeting, when I was presenting my idea, I was interrupted several times before I could even finish, and I felt discouraged. Or, for example, last month, when our agreements changed without any prior discussion, I felt frustrated and confused. The purpose isn't to build a case against someone. It's to create understanding. Specific examples remove ambiguity. They help the other person understand exactly what you're referring to. And they prevent the conversation from becoming a debate about every interaction you've ever had. So when we combine these three elements, something powerful happens. We say, I feel because of this situation, and here is a specific situation that illustrates it. Feeling, behavior, situation. And most importantly, we're being human. And I've seen this approach work in my own life. A few years ago, I had a conversation with a very close friend after feeling very frustrated that our plans were changing on the last minute. Instead of letting the frustration grow and build, I shared how it made me feel and gave a specific example. This conversation wasn't easy, but it helped us better understand each other. I've also used the same approach with employees, where the lack of communication was creating confusion within a project. By focusing on the impact of the behavior rather than assigning blame, we were able to improve the situation and strengthen our working relationship. What I have found is that many conflicts are not caused by bad intentions. They're caused by lack of awareness. The other person often doesn't even realize the impact of their actions. And until we have this conversation, neither side truly understands the other. Of course, this approach doesn't guarantee perfect outcomes. Some conversations remain difficult, some disagreements persist, some situations take time to improve. But even when the outcome is not perfect, the conversation itself creates value because you have expressed yourself honestly. You have given the other person an opportunity to understand, and you've taken action instead of letting frustration silently grow. In fact, when I look back at some of the strongest relationships I've built throughout my life, both professionally and personally, they weren't relations without conflict. They were relationships where people were willing to address conflict. Relationships where people felt comfortable enough to say, "Can we talk? Something is really bothering me. I'd like to share how I'm feeling." Those conversations weren't always easy, but they built trust, they built respect, and ultimately strengthened the relationship. So if there's one idea I'd like to leave you with today, it's this one. The conversation you're avoiding is often the conversation you need to have. Not aggressively, not emotionally, not with the goal of winning, but with the goal of understanding and being understood. Because every time we choose constructive dialogue over silent frustration, we create an opportunity for improvement, an opportunity for clarity, an opportunity for connection. So the next time you find yourself carrying a frustration, a disappointment, a misunderstanding, consider addressing it. Share your feelings, describe your behavior, provide a specific situation, and give the other person the chance to understand your perspective. You may be surprised by the outcome, because uncomfortable conversations are rarely comfortable in the moment, but very often they are the starting point of a stronger relationship, deeper trust, and better understanding. See you on my next videos, and thanks for watching.